My name is Maya, and I'm 27 years old. Until one devastating moment, I genuinely believed that family was everything, that blood ties were unbreakable no matter what. But my older brother Adrian, 32 years old and the self-appointed golden child of our household, operated under an entirely different philosophy. We were standing in the hallway of our parents' estate just 1 week before the holidays when he shattered that belief completely. Without a flicker of guilt, casually adjusting the expensive watch on his wrist, he informed me that his affluent new in-laws were flying in for Christmas dinner, and that my presence would create an awkward atmosphere. He framed it as concern, suggesting my life as a freelance graphic designer wouldn't mesh comfortably with their high society circle. It was a perfectly packaged insult disguised as social consideration. He even had the nerve to imply I was a source of unnecessary drama. The worst part was glancing past his shoulder and seeing my parents standing silently in the living room, their averted eyes speaking louder than any words ever could. Adrian had spent years perfecting the art of keeping me on the periphery of our family's warmth, but this was an entirely new cruelty. I walked out of that house with a burning ache in my chest, completely unaware of the terrifying reality hiding beneath his cold dismissal. Christmas Eve arrived wrapped in suffocating silence inside my small apartment. The rest of the city pulsed with festive warmth and shared laughter, but my living room was dim and still, the only light coming from the harsh blue glow of my phone screen. Against my own better instincts, I found myself scrolling through social media and immediately regretting it. My sister-in-law had posted a polished gallery from inside my parents' dining room. The table was a spectacle of excess, gleaming crystal, towering floral arrangements, and dishes that looked more like art than food. Adrian stood at the head of it all, champagne glass raised, looking completely untouchable. Watching them celebrate so effortlessly while I sat alone in the dark sent a crushing wave of inadequacy washing over me. I thought about every quiet sacrifice I had made for that family, every crisis I had steadied from the shadows while Adrian waltzed in to collect the applause. I felt completely erased, discarded like an embarrassing secret, utterly blind to the fact that the gleaming perfection I was watching was about to collapse spectacularly. The microwave clock ticked past midnight, officially marking Christmas Day. A heavy sigh had barely left my lips when my phone erupted with frantic vibrations. My mother's name lit up the screen. The instant I answered, a wave of cold dread rolled through my stomach. Her voice was unrecognizable, broken into breathless, trembling fragments. She begged me to turn on the television immediately and switch to the local news channel. My hands were shaking as I grabbed the remote. The screen flickered on to reveal a live, chaotic scene unfolding directly outside my parents' suburban estate. The quiet, snow-covered street was consumed by flashing blue and red emergency lights. Unmarked black SUVs and multiple police vehicles had completely sealed off the driveway. A bold breaking news banner scrolled across the bottom of the screen, announcing federal arrests connected to a sweeping white-collar crime investigation targeting a prominent local consulting firm. As the camera zoomed in and the reporter's voice cut through the roar of a circling helicopter, a horrifying clarity began assembling itself in my mind. Adrian had never uninvited me because of social incompatibility. That story was pure, calculated misdirection. The devastating truth was that for the past 18 months, he had been exploiting my identity without my knowledge, using my name, my clean credit history, and my stolen Social Security number to construct an elaborate network of fraudulent shell corporations. Through these fake business entities, he had funneled millions of dollars in illegal investments, engineering a paper trail engineered to point straight at me if his scheme ever unraveled. He had kept me away from that dinner table because he knew that one conversation with his so-called business partners, one casual question from me about his consulting work, would have exposed everything. The exile was never about embarrassment. It was about self-preservation at my expense. What he hadn't anticipated was that federal investigators had already spent months quietly dismantling his operation, tracking intercepted wire transfers and mapping his digital footprints. The elaborate trap he had been constructing around me had actually been closing silently around him the entire time. On Christmas Eve, right in the middle of his stolen celebration, the authorities finally shut it completely. By 2 a.m, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My parents were at the Central Police Station, desperate and unraveling. When I walked through those doors and saw my mother crying into a tissue and my father aged overnight, gripping a coffee cup with shaking hands, I braced myself. Their first words weren't an apology for what I had endured that week. Instead, they immediately began pressuring me to drain my personal savings to arrange bail and, even more shockingly, to lie to federal investigators by claiming I had willingly authorized those fraudulent companies. They wanted me to sacrifice myself to protect the son who had been methodically destroying me. It was the final, irreversible fracture. Fortunately, I had not arrived unprepared. On the drive over, I had reached out to a trusted corporate defense attorney who accompanied me inside. Standing firmly behind that legal protection, I looked my parents in the eye and refused. My lawyer stepped forward and handed investigators a meticulously organized digital archive documenting my genuine freelance business, my filed tax returns, and my complete personal banking history. Within hours, my identity was cleanly and definitively separated from every one of Adrian's crimes, and his carefully constructed legal defense began crumbling into nothing. As the investigation expanded over the following days, one final, deeply satisfying irony surfaced. The ultra-wealthy, high-society in-laws Adrian had been so desperately trying to impress, the very people he had used as his excuse to push me out, were not wealthy investors at all. They were seasoned undercover financial investigators who had been methodically targeting his suspicious firm for months. They had spent that entire time stroking his ego and encouraging his schemes, all while quietly accumulating the hard evidence needed to put him away for a very long time. In a matter of days, Adrian lost absolutely everything. His status-obsessed fiancée severed the engagement before his mugshot had even finished circulating through the morning headlines. Because his fraudulent activities had deeply compromised the family business, the federal government moved swiftly to seize vehicles, freeze accounts, and place substantial liens against my parents' estate to begin compensating his victims. Every luxury asset he had used as a symbol of his superiority was liquidated by court order. He was left with crushing debt, a destroyed reputation, and the looming certainty of a prison sentence. In trying to feed his own greed at my expense, he had unknowingly swallowed the very poison meant for me. 3 months later, my life is unrecognizable in the best possible way. I packed everything I owned, permanently severed ties with the toxic branches of my family tree, and relocated to a beautiful coastal town where the air carries salt and a sense of genuine freedom. I channeled every ounce of my renewed energy into my freelance graphic design business, which has since grown beyond anything I had previously imagined. Looking back with clear eyes, I now understand that being excluded from that Christmas dinner was never the wound I believed it to be. It was, in the most profound and unexpected way, the single thing that kept me from being completely destroyed. Had I been seated at that table, I might have been pulled beneath the wreckage alongside him. What felt like rejection was actually protection. And that realization changed everything about how I now see my life moving forward.